Greetings, students. Last time we were talking about the idea of the trans-rational, and after we discussed that, we begin to think about how you justify a darshana. Okay? Because it seems like logic alone is not going to decide an issue, right? And this doesn't mean you jettison logic, but it means you move into a higher stage of cognition, these philosophers think, which retains what is good and worthwhile in rationality while bringing it into a broader perspective. And to the philosophers of the Upanishads, to ultimately justify a darshana, you need to examine the quality of life that results from practicing it. The quality of life is the ultimate condition of truth in this philosophy, and you're aiming at not truth as a theory, but a life of truth. When we ask if something is it true, we usually mean, is it a fact, a bit of theoretical knowledge? But in this philosophy, is it true means both, is it a fact, and does it transform your life? So the quality of life lived according to the ideas in the philosophy is the ultimate test of the darshana. And what exactly then does quality of practice mean? Well, it means degrees of liberation from suffering, right? Degrees of philosophical truth are equal to degrees of liberation. And good in theory means that it's good in practice. And if it's good in practice, that means it's good in theory as well. Now, so the phrase you often hear, like good in theory, makes no sense in this kind of philosophy. Good theory means good practice, and good practice means good theory. In the modern West, and even in the modern East, we tend to think of theories of the good life. Ethics, for example, which I also teach. In teaching it, we look at various theories of the good life. We look at theories of hedonism, intuitionism, virtue theory, utilitarianism, deontology, formalism, and so on. And when we look at these theories, we look to see whether or not they're valid, meaning logical. Are they consistent? Do they hold together? But the practical means of attaining the ethics is not necessarily a part of the philosophy under consideration, and most often is not. Now, there are exceptions, but in general, ethics just means ethical theory and not ethical practice. In the philosophy we're considering, the proof is sort of in the pudding, and if there's nothing to eat, then there's no real philosophy at all. Now, the heart of the darshana, as we've said, is found in facing the suffering of human beings. The fact that we're mortal, the fact that we will die, the fact that we feel often a great sense of dissatisfaction with our condition, that there's sickness and suffering and plagues and pandemics and hurricanes and earthquakes, and on and on and on, right? Looking at the suffering of human beings leads to a focus and emphasis on the experience of the human self as an experiencing subject. So we're interested in what we could call the ultimate subject. But what is that, right? Well, that's the subject that's never an object. Let me give you an example. Sometimes this is called the watcher. Right? Take a pen or a pencil. I'm looking at it, and I'm aware of this pen. Now, if I pay attention, I can be aware of being aware of the pen, right? I'm aware of being aware of the pen. Who is that is aware? And if I really calm down and pay attention, I can be aware of being aware of the pen. And you can keep on going with this process, right? Because always there's a watcher. There's an awareness that's not an object, that is aware of all of these other levels of subjectivity. Now let me try to make you more aware of this through leading you through something that's called pointing out instructions. It's a kind of meditative exercise. Think of this as philosophy lab to help you enter into this idea of the ultimate subject, the subject that is never an object. So what I want you to do is just settle down wherever you are, sit in a comfortable position, take a few deep breaths, and then just listen to me and follow my instructions. So let's start by just being aware of the world around us. Be aware of your immediate environment and just relax your mind. Be aware of the room you're in. Perhaps there are people around you in your peripheral vision. Maybe there's desks. Maybe there's people moving. Maybe there's coughing. Or maybe you're alone and the sunlight is shining through the windows and you hear my voice speaking through the speakers. Right? Let your mind and your environment mingle. Notice how sounds come out of silence and go back into it. Listen, there's a sound. There was silence, and then a sound, and then another sound. Right? And notice how different objects can come into view. And notice that this takes no effort on your part. Your present awareness, in which the room you're in is existing, is very simple, very easy, effortless, and spontaneous. You simply notice there is an effortless awareness of the classroom, or the dorm room, or if you're sitting outside on a picnic bench, of the grounds around you. You simply and effortlessly witness all these things. Now close your eyes and just listen to my voice. Look at the sensations in your body. You can be aware of whatever bodily feelings are present. Perhaps pressure where you are sitting. Perhaps warmth in your tummy. Maybe tightness in your neck. But even if these feelings are tight and tense, you can easily be aware of them. These feelings arise in your present awareness, and that awareness is very simple, effortless, and spontaneous. You simply and effortlessly witness them. Now, be aware of the thoughts arising in your mind. You might notice various images, symbols, concepts, desires, hopes, and fears, all arising in your awareness. They arise, they stay a bit, and they pass. These thoughts and feelings arise in your present awareness, and that awareness is simple, effortless, and spontaneous. You simply and effortlessly witness them. Now open your eyes. And notice, you're aware of the computer, the floor, the ceilings, because you are not these things. You are the witness of them. You can feel bodily feelings because you are not those feelings. You are the witness of those feelings. You can be aware of thoughts floating by because you are not those thoughts. You are the witness of those thoughts. Spontaneously and naturally, these things all arise on their own in your present effortless awareness. So who are you? You're not objects out there. You're not feelings. You're not thoughts. You're just sort of aware of all those things, so you are not them. Who or what are you? Say it this way to yourself. I have feelings, but I am not those feelings. Who am I? I have thoughts, but I am not those thoughts. Who am I? I have desires, but I am not those desires. Who am I? So you push back into the source of your own awareness, into this witnessing consciousness, and you think, I am not objects, I am not feelings, I am not desires, I am not thoughts. But then you might make a big mistake. You might think that if you rest in this witnessing awareness, you're going to see something or feel something really extraordinary. But you won't experience anything special if you pay attention. If you are aware of something, some amazing feeling, that would just be another object, another feeling, another thought, another sensation, another image. But those are all objects that you are aware of, so those are things that are not you. No, as you rest in this witnessing awareness, realizing I'm not objects, I'm not feelings, I'm not thoughts, all you will notice is a sense of freedom, a sense of liberation, a sense of release. Release from the terrible constriction of identifying with those objects, your body, your mind, and ego, all of which are objects that can be experienced, and thus are not the true seer, the real self, and the pure witness, which is what you really are. So you won't experience anything in particular. Whatever arises in your awareness is fine. Things pass by in the environment, feelings float by in the body, thoughts float by in the mind, and you can effortlessly be aware of all of them. They all spontaneously arise in your present, easy, effortless awareness. And this witnessing awareness is not itself anything specific you can see or be aware of. It's just a vast background sense of freedom, or pure emptiness. And in that pure emptiness, which you are, the entire world rises up. And you are that freedom, that openness, that emptiness, and not anything that arises in it. So resting in that empty, free, easy, effortless witnessing, you notice that the whole room you're in, and the world outside you're aware of through the windows, and all the things that you hear, all of these things are arising in the vast space of your awareness. Everything is arising within you, and you are interrelated with them. You are one with them. It is as if they are on this side of your skin. They're so close. The world and your awareness have become one, and all the things in the world are floating effortlessly through your own awareness. And that's the easiest thing in the world, when inside and outside are no longer two. When there's only you, and you are that. Tat tavam asi. So, it's you the Darshana is talking about, not you in particular, but you as this witnessing awareness, right? Not some thing, a mere object, but you, right? I mean, you hear people talk about the human person. What does that mean anyway? Some kind of funny object, the human person. The human person in general? Have you ever met the human person? And in our study, a scientist might say, most people acted this way. Well, have you ever met most people? Who are most people anyway? I've never met them. Right? That's a sort of abstraction, right? But what's not unreal is you listening to me talking right now, and your essential experience of your own witnessing of what's arising before you. Right? And by this I mean not in an idiosyncratic sense, but in the sense that you always step back and you see, I'm aware of being aware. And I am not an object to myself. I am simply witnessing awareness. In the Kena Upanishad, we find this idea being clearly presented. Right? Read along with me. What cannot be spoken with words, but that whereby words are spoken, know that alone to be Brahman, the spirit, the witnessing consciousness, and not what people here adore. What cannot be thought with the mind, but that whereby the mind can think. What cannot be seen with the eye, but that whereby the eye can see. What cannot be heard with the ear, but that whereby the ear can hear. What cannot be indrawn with breath, but that whereby breath is indrawn. Know that alone to be Brahman, the spirit, and not what people here adore. So, in this philosophy, we're looking for self-knowledge. And that doesn't mean knowledge about my particular self, like facts of my history, like I was born in New Orleans and I love red beans and rice, and jambalaya and crawfish etouffee. That's not the kind of self-knowledge it's talking about. It's talking about knowledge of the universal self, of the pure self that never becomes an object. And the major thought here is that bondage to limited ways of experiencing our real self is the cause of suffering. Right? For the true self is called Atman, and it's taught that you can experience it in a central relationship to Brahman, the ultimate principle of universal reality. It's really kind of an astonishing thought, if you think about it, that we have a true self, this philosophy teaches, and this true self is identical with ultimate reality. And so it's the saying is, Aham Brahmasmi, I am Brahman. And Tattvamasi, the great saying, you are that. Truly the Brahman is this Atman. Right? Brahman, the power which we find expressed in the existence of all things that exist, which creates, sustains, preserves, and destroys all possible universes through an infinity of spaces and times. This eternal, infinite divine power is identical with Atman, that which we find after questioning and stripping away everything external is our most essential being, our own true self. Savayam Atma Brahma. Truly, the Brahman is this Atman. And this darshana of ultimate identity in this way of thinking provides the key to philosophy as a way of life. Everything we see around us as divided is really a manifestation of a deeper reality that is undivided. And different levels of reality correspond to different levels of experience of this reality by you. But don't get confused about who you are, because the you they're talking about is the you as ultimate subject, not you individually, like me, the you who loves red beans and rice. Not the personal you, but the universal you. Listen to this story, because you don't want to forget the elephant. Listen. An old guru, so we hear, was about to conclude the secret lessons he had been given to an advanced pupil on the omnipresence of the divine spiritual unity. Everything, said the wise old teacher while his pupil listened, indrawn and full of the bliss of learning, is God, the infinite, pure and real, boundless and beyond the pair of opposites, devoid of differentiating qualities and limiting distinctions. This is the final meaning of all the teachings of our holy wisdom. The people understood. Brahman, God, he responded, is the sole reality. That divine one may be found in everything, unaffected by suffering or any fault. Every you and I is its abode, every form an obscuring figuration within which that unique, unacting Atman dwells. He was elated. A wave of feeling swept through him tremendously, and he felt luminous and immense, like a cloud which, increasing, has come to feel the firmament. Sublime, he walked down the road like a cloud, keeping to the middle of the road, when a huge elephant came from the opposite direction. The driver, riding on the neck, shouted out, clear the way for the elephant!" And the numerous tinkling bells of the net covering of the great animal rang with a silvery peal to the rhythm of its booming feet. The self-exalted student of philosophy, though full of divine feeling, yet heard and saw the coming of the elephant, and he said to himself, "Why should I make way for that elephant? I am Brahman, I am God. The elephant is Brahman, the elephant is God. Should God be afraid of God?" And so fearlessly and with faith he continued in the middle of the road. But when God came to God, the elephant swung its trunk around the waist of the philosopher and tossed him out of the way into the ditch. He landed hard and was a little hurt, but more greatly shocked. Covered with dust, limping, bruised, and unsettled in his mind, he returned to his teacher and told about his confusing experience. The guru listened patiently, and when the tale was told, simply replied, "Indeed, you are God. So is the elephant. But why did you not listen to God's voice calling to you from the driver, who is also God, to clear the way for the elephant?" So in the Upanishads, we find a philosophy or darshana of ultimate identity. Everything we see around us as divided is really a manifestation of a deeper reality that is undivided, with different levels of reality corresponding to different levels of experience of this reality by you. But remember the elephant. So awareness as self-knowledge is the key in this way of thinking. Now, this emphasis on ultimate subjectivity also helps us understand some points about how thinkers in this tradition address other traditions, right? Because philosophical judgment, if you think about it, on one side, it can be sort of quantitative and public. You write it, you assess it from the exterior, as it were. But it can also be qualitative, how it's experienced from the inside, belonging to the self as subject. And since this is the philosophy of ultimate subjectivity, there's no one true darshana in the quantitative sense where you sort of lay out a theory. It's impossible to have a true theory because we're not really interested in theory, but truth that's a finger pointing at the moon to make your life better, right? So truth depends in this philosophy on the experiencing subject, and another person's experience can only be an object for me, right? So no knowing of the other's reality as subject is possible from that exterior perspective. And so no ultimate rejection of the other's experience as entirely false or inadequate would make sense, because I would have to be them to make that judgment. It doesn't mean I can't say you've given a bad argument. It doesn't mean I can't say I find your logic flawed. But what it means is I also can't deny that because they too are an experiencing subject, that they possibly have some real grasp on some aspect of the truth. So classical Indian thought, in this sense, has a sort of tolerant synthetic quality to it. Not because it's a nice way to be, but because that's the reality. From the reality, the ethics are derived. Show me what is most real. You try to live in the light of that reality. If the reality is one of ultimate subjectivity, then tolerance and compassion naturally arise from that reality. And while no one vision, darshana, or philosophy may be absolutely complete, each philosophical system must, according to the logic of this philosophy, mirror something of the real, and it would be impossible that it should not. So, through respecting other darshanas, one will come closer to the truth. Right? In this sense, we can think of two different models of philosophical progress. In one, we're trying to move from falsehood toward truth. We want to get our theories straight and get as many facts as we can and just get at the truth of the matter in terms of finding a final sort of theory of everything, the famous TOE that Western physicists are so enamored with, by which they would be able to have the truth. But in this other way of knowing, there's the idea that all knowledge will always be partial, and all of us together are trying to move from having partial knowledge to complete knowledge. And complete knowledge is only possible in the essence of ultimate subjectivity in who you really are. In this philosophy, your darshana, your speculative vision, involves more than seeing with the mind, right? Though it doesn't involve less, right? As we've learned, it's sublated, taken up into a higher level. But in this way of thinking, what you judge by is more than simple intellectual theory on the level of reason, right? You must do your seeing at the trans-rational, transpersonal level, where we combine heart as well as mind. So there's two Sanskrit words, prajna, which is the principle of rationality, and karuna, which is the principle of compassion. And you need both of them together to have wisdom. And together then you literally will have a mind full of love. In the Upanishads it says, Brahman is the inmost soul of all, the master of wisdom, ever reached by thought and love. Literally what you want to develop is an awareness of yourself as an experiencing subject in which all the objects rising in your experience you see with a mind full of love. So, thank you for your kind attention, and there will be more videos coming your way soon. I hope you have a good morning, afternoon, evening, or middle of the night, wherever your now finds you.